Hector Hernandez on the guitar, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2018 Raider Reaction Official Mock Draft. It's another beautiful day to be a Raider, draped in the silver and black. I represent the shield. I represent the swords. It's that time of night again, Raider Nation. And you come back. Why? Because it's time. It's time to bring them. What's up, Raider Nation? I am the Commish, coming to you live from Hardcore Challenge Live Studios. Where? You know where. Deep behind the enemy line. This is the Raider Reaction official 2018 live mock draft. And I know my NFL, but I am not the expert when it comes to college football and the talent that is coming out. So, I have, of course, none other than JP, the Raider Reaction college football guru, here to make heads or tails of all of this nonsense. So, we put our heads together, more JP's head than mine, and
it's a big head.
We have our official mock draft.
What's up, Raider Nation?
So, we will see if you agree with this, disagree with this. We will see in the annals of time if we end up being correct or not. But we will see. We will see. So, I've seen lots of changes. Like we were talking at the who everybody's number one consensus number one pick as was Darnold. It seemed everybody was going a week ago. Now it seems like everybody's going Josh Allen.
Yeah, I think that it's, a lot of what the draft is projecting guys, which is why you see like a guy like Tremaine Edmonds, I've seen going anywhere from 5 or 6 to all the way down to 17, 18, and because he's 19 years old, he's a guy that you really got to project, what can he be?
Yeah.
And Darnold is a safe pick because he doesn't come with as many of the question marks as somebody like an Allen or the bravado of a Rosen and a Baker Mayfield. So I think that makes him a safer pick in a lot of teams' eyes. But I don't think he has the upside of an Allen, of a Mayfield if he really takes off, of a Lamar Jackson if he's in the right situation. So that I think that's part of why early on everybody assumed Darnold would kind of go number one, is because there were weren't as many red flags,
Yeah.
which I don't understand because he threw a lot of picks when he was at USC for a guy that you would say is around, better talent than pretty much every other team they probably played.
Yeah.
And yet that doesn't really get brought up.
It seems like the USC quarterbacks always get the big props because it's a pro style. You always hear it's the pro style offense.
Right.
Well, how come they're not winning national championships every year if it's so fucking fantastic?
It's not pro style if you're not the pros.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a wannabe pro style offense.
Yeah, that's always the cred you'll hear the USC quarterbacks get is And a lot of the other big schools like that too.
And then they talk about pro style offense, but then last year, some of the guys making the most noise, weren't typical prototype, pro style offense. If he doesn't get hurt, Deshaun Watson's probably your rookie of the year last year.
Oh, I agree.
And
he was killing it.
And he's would definitely not be considered a prototype.
I traded Deshaun Watson in our fantasy league for a number one pick this season. I traded him right before he went down. I always do that. I try to draft because we're in a dynasty league, so I try to draft a young hot quarterback.
Sure.
Every year, I try to get whoever I think it is, and for some reason, I always seem to hit. And I will trade them as soon as they get hot, just a little bit, and I'll trade the fucker. And this last year, it worked out great for me because I traded Deshaun Watson the week before he went down, and I got a number one pick for him, and it was a great trade for me, but unfortunate for Deshaun Watson.
Now, is this a dynasty league?
Yes.
You got? But now you don't have Deshaun Watson.
I don't have Deshaun Watson going forward, but I have Derek Carr as my quarterback, so I was already rolling with him anyway.
Right.
So that's why I wasn't playing to keep that guy.
Right.
I just try to draft the hot guy, and then I'll deal him later.
House money.
Yes.
So now maybe you end up, with
like
Saquon
this year I'll
Barkley
do
or
this year I'll do
something.
the same
Sure.
thing. I've actually got 4 number 1 picks in our draft this year.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I made some good deals this
crazy.
season. I raped and pillaged.
Yeah, it's kind of too bad that this is a year that isn't like for wide receivers, for tight ends. There's some depth there, but there's not that Julio Jones. There's not a guy that's really going to take over and be a for sure number one guy. Cortland Sutton, maybe out of SMU, could be a guy that could because he's got the frame for it. He's 6'3", he's a big receiver. But again, he's a guy that you're having to project. He played at SMU. What was the competition that a guy like that is really going against week in and week out? So he's a guy that you could see because of frame, maybe he takes off and he's really good, or maybe he gets in the league and it's all too much for him.
We're all talking, and what you got to remember is all of these kids are what, they're 19, 20, and you're talking about kids that are about to come into the type of money that they've never had in their lives. So you're trying to predict what these kids are going to do, what they're going to be when they're just getting ready to become filthy rich.
You're right.
For playing a game, and so there's a lot that goes into selecting. It's like the Jamarcus Russell debacle. Talented kid had nothing but marbles in his head, and when he gets there, he's a $70 million boat anchor with purple drink in a cup. So.
$70 million arm and a 50-cent head.
Yeah,
if you would have given me above the law money at 21 years old, I'm not sure
I would have done the same damn thing probably. I wouldn't have made it to 25. There's no way.
It's been a pretty great 4 years though.
Yeah, I'd be more along the line of Todd Marinovich probably. You'd be catching me naked smoking weed in somebody's backyard. That's where I'd be.
So, kind of the deal is why a lot of these guys don't work out is because you really have no idea until not only how they'll handle the in between the line stuff, but how they're going to handle walking around with more money than anybody they've ever known has. I can't remember to even think about, you go out to eat. If I'm going to order something to eat, I always take a look how much it costs first.
Yeah.
Well, how bad do I want this?
Typically.
Imagine walking into a place money is no object for anything. You don't ever really have to look at what anything costs anymore.
Yeah.
And that can really get out of hand in a hurry. If you went from driving an old, beat up,
who was the quarterback? I don't remember who it was who
who
just went and bought like some average car was like the only thing he'd bought. Was that Sam Bradford?
I'm not sure.
I can't remember, but there was a quarterback that had came out, and he came out and like he just went and bought like some average car and just something reliable to get him back and forth to practice, and he went to work. Like now, Jamarcus Russell, he went out and bought friggin' 1 carat diamond rings for his ears and all kinds of shit, and he was more about what that money was going to get him than worrying about getting to work, and the mentality shows.
I remember
that's why one's still in the league and one's not.
I remember being surprised when I read where Gronkowski hasn't touched any of his money from when he was drafted.
Right,
which you look at that guy and you're like, you figure he's blowing through money left
and right.
Yeah,
you'd think he's sticking it in thongs.
right.
Making it rain.
Right. I'm surprised he doesn't have, carpal tunnel from all the thong money he's passed around. But apparently a guy that really smart with his money, and then you have other guys that, are out buying everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody, they know cars and, 5 houses and all that stuff. So some of these guys, it really is, what are they going to get into? A lot of that comes down to your city. For example, like the Raiders, it's going to take a special kind of player to walk into Vegas and be able to
Vegas
to
is going to put a twist on things. It's reality, baby. Man. Yeah. It's Vegas. It's Sin City.
Right.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, and you're bringing in 19, 20-year-old kids, signing them to a big fat contract and sticking them in Vegas.
Right. I mean, like the New York cities, like the LA, like, Vegas, like, those cities, trouble finds you. You don't have to go looking for it.
No.
So, those are considerations. It's different than a kid to get drafted to Tennessee and has to, walking around Nashville isn't the same as walking around Vegas. So, that it ends up being part of an evaluation for any of these players too. So there's a lot that goes into it, which is why there's different opinions from all over the place as far as the draft goes, and trying to mock, who's going to take who where, and this year I think more than maybe any it is tough because I think that there could be a whole lot of trades. So even guys that you think are a good fit,
it's hard to
spot.
It's hard to judge the trades.
There's really no way to know if they're actually going to be at that spot, by the time that, you may have picked somebody to go there. Everybody's pretty much saying that Buffalo is going to make a move up to get a quarterback. I didn't really factor in any trades. It's just would be guessing game at this point.
Yeah, trades are hard to add in. So we didn't really figure in any trades in our mock draft. We went with a straight 1 through 32. We're also going to go with who I believe will be the positions that the Raiders are going to select through all of their positions. Of course, we're going to pick the first, who is the number 10 pick. So, should we get to it? Let's get to it.
There it is. Now it's official.
The pick is in. Cleveland Browns. First overall pick. Would you like to do the honors?
With the number 1 pick in the 2018 NFL Raider Reaction mock draft, the Cleveland Browns selected Josh Allen, University of Wyoming quarterback. And the reason for that is what I mentioned before is upside. He, I think, probably more than any quarterback that will be in this draft, physically has the most upside. When you look at a guy that was in a program like Wyoming, he probably didn't play with anybody else that is even going to sniff the NFL.
No.
And if you watch a lot of his games throughout the season, he was running for his life most of the year. So you have that big arm with a kid who was also really mobile. He's going to keep his nose clean. You're talking about, and again, not necessarily for trouble, but for the uniqueness of a city. Being in Cleveland, thrown in the Midwest, dealing with that weather, you have to have a guy that can really drive the ball through the wind to be successful. And I think that that's something that the Browns will really covet as a quarterback with a big arm. but also can get himself out of trouble with his feet. So he's not going to be a statue back there. So I think that's why at the end of the day they end up going with upside with Allen.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So Josh Allen is who we're going with our first pick. He's off the board. So on to number 2. We've got the New York Giants, correct? On the board with the number 2 pick. The pick is in.
And I think that pick number 2, you got to consider the place as well. And I think that the Giants are going to value something they can kind of count on. And I think number 2, the Giants are going to end up going with Sam Darnold. Anybody who followed the Giants last season, to me, it really seemed like they wanted every excuse to be able to try and squeeze Eli Manning out, and they just didn't have any better options to put in there to make it happen.
What a damn shame, man. Jesus Christ, the guy only won you 2 fucking Super Bowls.
I know,
God.
And they felt like, on a Wednesday, they're like, oh yeah, by the way, you're not playing this week. And then they come back the following Monday, and they're like, we're just kidding.
Yeah, when the guy had missed a game for freaking seasons.
Right.
Jesus, you, God. Stand behind a guy, for Christ's sakes.
And so I honestly think that they're going to want a guy that they feel like they can depend on, is going to be a sure thing. He'll be good with the media in New York. He's, like you said, been the quarterback at USC. Is a very high profile position, and being out in LA, and so I think that he'll handle himself well in New York City. And I think that ultimately they end up going quarterback.
And the New York City spin on it is a lot to think about, and it's a big thing, because you don't even understand the New York City media market is a beast in itself. It not even touching into the national market, just the New York City media market, its sports media market itself. They will crucify you in their local media if you do not produce in New York. So it takes a certain kind of guy to be able to play in the Big Apple. That is for sure. Anybody that plays for the Knicks knows about it. Anybody that plays for the Yankees knows about it. Mets, anybody that New York, especially the Giants, man. Giants fans, they expect a lot. And Eli Manning, they crucify Eli Manning on a yearly basis. And that guy's got 2 Super Bowl rings.
And never does anything wrong.
No,
Like,
he's the poster child. He has no controversies, nothing.
No.
He's just kind of a smug-looking prick on his look on his face, but that's just him. You can't crucify him for that. He's born with it.
And I think that the Giants, it would be, if this was a year where there was an elite left tackle, they really need offensive line help. Probably more than anything, they've needed offensive line help for a few years. But there's just not anybody worth taking up at 2. Maybe the Giants would be willing to be one of those teams that would trade down. But how many chances are they going to get to be in the top 2 or 3 and be able to get a quarterback that could be their next franchise quarterback? So that's why I think they stay there.
All righty. Moving on. Number 3.
Number 3.
With the New York football Jets. Jets.
See,
Jets.
with the
Jets.
The Jets, I think with the 3rd pick, the Jets are going to take Josh Rosen. And I think he also can handle the New York market, but I think that the Jets fans will appreciate a little bit more of his cockiness than I think the Giants will. Because the Jets,
they just need something.
I think
to rally around.
Maybe he's their next Broadway Joe, because he's talented. He's an accurate quarterback. He's a kid that will lead, and I think that a team can get behind. He might ruffle some feathers along the way, but New Yorkers don't care about that. If you produce on the field, the rest is just white noise. So he's a guy that I think that, and because they need a quarterback.
Yeah.
And starting out, he's probably the most polished
they've
of
got
all
Christian
of them.
Hackenberg.
Right. So never mind. take it back.
Come on.
They're going to roll with
You
Hackenberg.
drafted him a couple years ago. He should. I thought he was it. Yeah, the Jets have nobody. When you go out and sign Josh McCown to actually start, yeah, that's all you need to say about the state of your franchise right there.
And it's, you know, for some of these teams with these guys, it's a deal where, you know, you have to take your shot at a quarterback. You've got teams that haven't had any quarterbacks in forever. You know, when's the last time the Jets had anybody who was any good at quarterback? I mean,
even Namath. Namath, who's the greatest Jets basically the greatest Jet ever, statistically is garbage.
He threw more picks than
he's the most overrated. He's up there with Dilfer when you put him up statistically with quarterbacks who've won a Super Bowl and what they were in the rest of their career.
Right.
The rest of his career, he wasn't shit. He was a guy that made a strong proclamation, wore snazzy fucking fur coats and chased women. And so he was a media darling that, you know, was in the spotlight. Right. But he wasn't all that. Go look at his stats. He's one of the most overrated quarterbacks in history.
And so, you know, it really is if you don't have a quarterback, you're just not going to win. I mean, it's really I mean, it's so rare to be able to be without literally a historic defense and great running game. You really have no chance to win.
I mean, we've all seen the fan with the famous Browns jersey with the mile and a half of names down it, and they drafted a quarterback last year and traded his ass already.
Right.
And now they're again. I mean, it's just it's almost mind-boggling to see that the Browns again are going to be going after in the first round a quarterback. Again.
This last year I heard an interview with Joe Thomas where he listed off all the quarterbacks that had started in his career.
Yeah, it's insane.
And it was like 27.
It's insane.
It was guys that I'd forgotten even played in the league, period. Much less were a starting quarterback.
Like, hey, you, can you throw a ball?
Right, like Charlie Fry.
Yeah.
And like some of these guys, you're like, really?
Really?
That guy? Really?
Yeah.
They really... You know, it's just one of those deals where if you don't have a guy, then you're not going to win in this league. So you sometimes
we'll see what Josh Allen can do.
Sometimes you got to reach on guys.
We'll see what Josh Allen can do.
Rose at 3 to the Jets. Number 4 with Cleveland's fourth pick. This is one that I think there's going to be a lot of buzz about a trade happening because. Cleveland's got holes, on several spots, so they could really use getting some extra
having these picks. 2 picks up there. They'll go early where they want number 1, and they could trade out of number 4. Right. I can see that
and
too.
So this is a spot where you could really see a lot of action, and you could see them getting a big haul in return for this pick because there's going to be several teams that want to make a play on it. So they're going to be able to play teams off of each other. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see them get a huge draft picks back for this. But since we're not doing any supposed trades, we're going to stick with the Browns picking here. And with the 4th pick in the draft, I think that they would go with a guy who a lot of people think might have the most upside and most talent of anybody is the defensive end out of North Carolina State, Bradley Chubb.
I've heard some say he's the best, one of the best players in the draft period.
Yeah,
but he's not. He doesn't throw a ball, so unfortunately, some of these other teams have a.
You hear comparisons about Mario Williams and Julius Peppers. I mean, so you're talking about a guy with size, with elite level athleticism. The Giants could have used a replacement for Pierre-Paul. They traded down to the Bucks, but at 2, like I said, I just don't think they're going to get many opportunities to be that high anymore. I don't remember the last time. I mean, probably the last time they were that high in the draft is when they drafted Eli Manning.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of opportunities for them to really be there to try and get their successor at quarterback. So that's why I think that they'll go quarterback there. But at 4, it gives the Browns a bookend to go along with their first round pick last year. So you're getting 2 guys to really attack the passer. And defensive lines are really what make elite defenses. If you can't get after the passer, then you really don't have a shot of being an elite defense anymore. So that's why I think at 4 that they go Bradley Chubb.
Bradley Chubb. All right. So Browns, grab Josh Allen, Bradley Chubb in the top 4 picks. So that could, I mean, with what they added on defense last year, I mean, the Browns did great in free agency as well. Yeah. So, and I don't think you're not going to see an 0-16 team in Cleveland this year.
No, they are getting better. They've changed really the way that they're doing things from their front office. I could see them going a Saquon Barkley at 4. I mean, everybody loves Barkley, but they just brought on Carlos Hyde over from the 49ers. Hyde is an underrated back. I think in a lot of ways they still have Duke Johnson there. So they already kind of have a 1-2 punch. I mean, Barkley's going to be great. I'm a huge fan of Saquon Barkley, but I think for a top 4 running back pick when you have so many other needs, other places, I don't think that it's worth it.
Let's not get carried away, Lions. The Browns are not leaving the kiddie table any fucking time soon. Let's not get carried away. The Browns are firmly planted on the kiddie table. Their seat is secure. They may not lose 16 games this season, but they ain't leaving the fucking kiddie table. Let's not get carried away now.
They might be the last one to leave the kiddie table.
Yeah, let's not get carried away now. Let's keep it in the realm of reality here. We're not. This ain't fairy tale land.
Yeah, Kevin Costner isn't your GM doing your draft day.
No.
So, up next, number 5, we have the Donkeys with the pick, and this is one where I think is in my opinion, a little bit of a stretch for him here.
We know they need a quarterback.
I think that they go quarterback here. They need a guy with upside. I think that a guy like Elway, again, considering the situation with the picks, I think he loves having a fiery leader. And so I think at 5 that they end up going with Baker Mayfield out of Oklahoma.
Now, they went and got Case Keenum, and they paid Case Keenum a boatload. And I think that Case Keenum was just like, the best thing at the room at 2 o'clock in the morning kind of type of deal when he was leaving the bar. And they're like, we'll take him, because everybody else was getting grabbed up, and they needed a quarterback in free agency. So I definitely think they're going to go after one, and Baker Mayfield's going to be the guy. And I think they need a quarterback for the future. Elway has not had very much success drafting quarterbacks. He's tried. Right. Paxton Lynch was the last experiment. He brought in Jim Kelly's son last year. Yeah, he drafted him as well. He's tried the Tim Tebow experiment. He's tried several things in Denver to bring the guy in. Obviously, they went out and got Peyton Manning, but other than doing that, John Elway hasn't been able to do it a lot with the supposed quarterback guru that he is. Has not been able to get it done other than being able to coach Peyton Manning into at the end of his career.
And they're another team that I think they have several spots where I think they could wait on a quarterback, but the spots that they need filled, I don't know that there's anybody good enough yet to take that high. I think they need a corner to replace Aqib Talib. I could see them, they just released C.J. Anderson, so it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility that they take a Saquon Barkley. Mm-hmm. I know they have Devontae Booker there, but I just think he's a guy. I don't think he's going to be the guy for anybody.
No, I don't either.
So maybe they try and help that offense. Maybe because they just, did pick up a quarterback, maybe they do go running back to try and help give some juice to that offense. But I think to your point, I think they take Keenum because they needed a guy.
They needed a guy.
This gives Mayfield, a year or two to learn if they need to. Salaries aren't what they used to be years ago with it being set now. Yeah. So it's not like just because you draft a guy in the top 5,
you don't get raped like the boat at $70 million boat anchor.
Right. You don't have to play a guy right away because you're paying him so much money. So I think they go quarterback here because again, Elway, just knowing that the ego in that guy, he's assuming he's not going to be up this high again to be able to take.
No, and he wants. I'm telling you, the guy's a fucking big horse-mouthed egomaniac. And he wants to put a stamp on it and be like, look, I did this. Because I won the Super Bowl as a quarterback. I brought in Peyton Manning, got it done, and I was able to go draft and pick and develop. So that's like the last thing I know. Listen, he doesn't want to be wrong. He's been wrong too many times on quarterbacks, and he wants to be right this time. And well, I don't think I'm not high on Baker Mayfield.
I'm not really either, but
that's neither here nor there.
Really matter.
He's been picked. He's number 5 to the Denver Donkeys.
Number 6, the Indianapolis Colts. This is one of those.
They need a lot of help.
Another one needs a lot of help, and they are in kind of the same boat with the Giants in that they really could use strengthening their offensive line. You know, as much as they put stock in Andrew Luck, the beating that guy takes is unbelievable. I mean, and they didn't even have him all last year because of the beating he takes.
He's still not thrown a ball yet.
Oh, really?
No, he's still not throwing a ball. He's not gripped a football and thrown it yet.
I mean, they have no wide receivers outside of T.Y. Hilton, who should be like a number 2. He's, poor man's Antonio Brown, but you saw when he didn't have a quarterback, he didn't put up huge numbers, when they didn't have a guy. So they could use a wide receiver, they get offensive line, but they're another one that I think they need to get after the quarterback, and they need some talent on the defensive side of the ball. So with this pick, I think they take Tremaine Edmonds, the outside linebacker out of Virginia Tech.
And I know that's a guy that was on a lot of Raider Nation's draft board as somebody you wanted to see, but we've got him going at number 6. He won't make it to see the Oakland Raiders at 10.
So next are the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 7. And
another team that needs a lot of help.
I'm sensing.
I mean, if you're in the top 10, you need a lot of fucking help because that means last year didn't go well.
And that's our theme apparently. But again, this would be the Bucs would probably be better served about trading back if they could get some other picks for later on. So. Again, the Bucs could use offensive line help. They need help at pass rusher. They need help all over, really. I mean, they could use another linebacker. They really have some spots where they could go different ways. But I think that they go with the best player on the board, and it happens to also be a position of need. And so the Bucs here, I think they take Saquon Barkley out of Penn State.
A lot of people have Saquon Barkley going a lot higher than we've got him going at 7. So, but like you see, we had 4 quarterbacks out of the top 5 picks going, and then those are just happen to be huge needs for the teams that are there at those positions. There's a reason they finished.
I mean, everybody on ahead of him, everybody up on here could justify taking Saquon Barkley. He is better than whoever else they have starting on those teams. But for the most part, running backs don't win you championships. I mean, Adrian Peterson may be one of the best running backs of all time, and how much winning did the Vikings do while he was there?
He didn't hang no banners in that fancy new stadium yet, killing all the birds.
You know, what made the biggest difference for them is they drafted really well on defense. They drafted, they brought in some couple wide receivers to play good enough offense. They brought in some offensive linemen. And so I like Saquon Barkley a lot. I think he is right up there physically and could be the best athlete, quite honestly. I've watched a lot of Big Ten football being a Nebraska fan. And go watch that guy's highlight film. It is.
Yeah, he's amazing.
He's
man.
amazing.
And you're right. He's better than any of these other guys got at the running back position. But if you don't have a quarterback, it doesn't matter how great of a running back you got. It's not that kind of league anymore.
The Bucs you could use help on defense. They could use offensive line help. But I think this is how they help Jameis Winston is try and get him a better running game. And you can't be rolling out there with the guys that the Bucs have day one. So I think this position of need with too good of a guy to pass up, I think, for them.
Yeah, the Bucs haven't had a solid running back in eons.
No.
Like, ever, really. I mean, who Warwick Dunn?
Right.
Was he, like, like, have they had anybody since Warwick Dunn, Cadillac Williams for like a year?
Cadillac.
I mean, but other than that, I mean, really,
nobody.
Doug Martin.
And
these are the best.
And if
these are the best ones I'm mentioning.
And in that division, if you don't have a defense to really slow those offenses down, or an offense that can keep up, you need to slow the game down, and you do that by being able to run the ball. So I think it would be. It's definitely a position of need for them. I think that it would be a good pick. So,
all right.
So at number 8, we have the Chicago Bears, and this pick for me, I think, makes a ton of sense for them. At 8, I think that they take Quentin Nelson, the offensive guard, out of Notre Dame.
This is a guy I could see possibly going earlier too, only because it's such an important position. It's almost a position, I would say, almost second important to quarterback. Might be a left tackle or a strong offensive lineman.
Yeah, I don't think he'll go sooner, even though a lot of people say that he's a future Pro Bowler, just because he's a guard and not a tackle. But they say he's going to be a plug and play guy. I mean, you draft your franchise quarterback, you want to be able to keep him clean. They needed better offensive line play. I think they also could go defense here. I think that they would Tremaine Edmonds, if he were able to fall. I think that's a guy they could take. Roquan Smith, I think, is a guy that they could also take. I think they could use a corner, but I don't think any of the corners. There's one or two guys that could end up being good enough to go in this range here.
Well, if they can pair him up with Trubisky, which is what they're probably thinking is they're hoping Trubisky's their guy.
Yep.
They pair this guy up with him who's covering his blind side for the next decade, and there you go. There's your quarterback that they've never ever been able to find. God, the Bears, they're like the Browns.
They are.
They
it's
can't
like Jim
have
McMahon.
Jim McMahon was the best thing they'd ever had, and he wasn't even that great. He said Walter Payton in the greatest defense ever. So that was, but they need something in Chicago, and they got, like I said, they got the quarterback.
Yep.
They got to protect him.
Yep.
It seems like a logical pick to go with early, since they supposedly got their quarterback last year. Well, Napoleon Dynamite was sitting there.
I really
watching.
love the under the radar pickup for them that I think could be pretty great. Is they went out and got Trey Burton, the tight end from the Eagles. And I was a big fan of his. He, towards the end of the year, was, basically playing just as good as anybody else they had on that offense. And now you give him a tight end, you go out and
No, he's not a left tackle, but he could be. They move these guys around all the time. Half the guys, like when we brought in Robert Gallery, he started out left tackle. We had to move him to freaking guard because he couldn't handle it. You never know where he's going to end up.
So I think that, then they go out and pay Allen Robinson some money. So they go out and get a number 1 wide receiver. They get a tight end. Mm-hmm. They're trying to set him up to be successful because it has been so long since they had a quarterback that was any good. So I think this pick just makes too much sense for the Bears to not take him.
All righty. Number 9, the pick is in.
At number 9, this is one that I think is a good marriage, and he is a guy that I think makes a lot of sense, again, because of what we talked about before with Elway, wanting to get a guy at quarterback. I think that the 49ers, having John Lynch there, I think that he would love to get a field general
back. They need defensive help. They really do.
So I think this pick at number 9, Derwin James out of Florida State, I think makes a lot of sense. For them to be able to get a quarterback in the back end of that secondary. I think Lynch really understands, obviously, what a great safety looks like.
Yes, he does.
And, I think and this is a guy from one of the first shows that I did with you, even the beginning of the college football season, I brought up about that this guy's a stud, and he's going to be a future Pro Bowler. He's really versatile.
I've started to see this guy in a ton of mock drafts at number 10 for the Raiders, and I don't understand that one because he's a safety. And
And you just took a safety very recently.
Yeah,
so
and we got safeties, and I don't see where.
I don't think he goes to the Raiders.
I don't think he fits in our team unless they're thinking of moving him to corner. But I don't think that's. I don't think that's the case.
No, I don't think that he makes sense for you guys at safety. I think you have needs other places where you can get talent that would make some more sense.
Alrighty, so here we are. Number 10. The only one most of you guys care about. Number 10. The pick is in. Now we're going to debate this one a little bit first, because this one took some debate between us before we agreed on what the pick was going to be. Now, there is a possibility that we do trade out of this pick. I think that's a strong possibility too. If we can stay in the first round and get 2 picks, and if there's somebody absolutely wants, because look at where we're at right now with who's still on the board. You still got Vita Vea, who's big on a lot of people's draft boards. You got Roquan Smith still available. You got Josh Jackson, who I've been talking about for weeks. You got Denzel Ward, who's a lot of people are saying is the number 1 corner in the draft. So you've got all of these guys available now. You're sitting at 10. This is what we've been talking about for weeks, was a lot of quarterbacks were going to go at the top, which means talent was going to keep getting pushed down. So at 10, we were going to have a pick of the litter. So I'm still leaning towards Josh Jackson. I think he's a talented guy, JP. He's the Jack Tatum Award winner in 2017.
Yep.
He plays, like you had mentioned, he plays at Iowa. He's played in adverse conditions. He plays in shitty weather, rain, snow, and he's still getting it done. So he's just proven to be a very talented kid.
And I like Josh Jackson. I think that he's got great ball skills. He's a good tackler. He's got a good frame to be able to potentially be a number 1 corner to match up with some of those more elite wide receivers because of his size. I just don't think that he's the pick for the Raiders. I think that the Raiders, if they stay here at 10, the pick that I think makes the most sense for me, and again, was a guy that in the beginning of the season on one of the shows, this was a guy that I said in the draft. I even before I knew where you guys were going to draft, I said I think this is a guy who would be perfect for you guys, and it's Roquan Smith, the linebacker out of Georgia. And the reason being is I think that Gruden wants a dude in the middle of his defense that's going to take charge. I don't think there's a better leader than Roquan Smith at the linebacker position. Even if a guy like a Tremaine Edwards some people may think he has more upside because of his size and his youth, Roquan Smith is a guy that from day one will be like a Deion Jones is for Atlanta, a guy who is a sideline-to-sideline runner, a sure tackler, and is going to be a captain-type linebacker on that team, a la Derek Brooks like Gruden had with Tampa Bay, even though they played different positions. But Roquan Smith is a guy who can do a little bit of everything, and I think he would be a great pick for the Raiders.
All right, so it took some convincing. We went back and forth, and we've decided our official pick for number 10 for the Oakland Raiders for this season is linebacker Roquan Smith. So I didn't go with Josh Jackson.
I think that you guys would love Roquan Smith. He's another guy. Go back and take a look at his tape. Sideline to sideline tackler. Tough as nails, played in an elite conference in the SEC.
Do you feel he may be undersized? Lines asked that.
I think that that's where the game is going to because of it becoming more and more of a passing league with the NFL. If you look at a guy like Deion Jones, he came in as an undersized guy, but the Falcons wanted guys that could cover in space. As the game spreads out, you got to have a guy who covers sideline to sideline and can really lead a defense. And so, he doesn't have the elite type of size that a Tremaine Edmonds has. Yeah. But I think that he is a dude.
I don't think Edmonds is going to be there at 10. I don't think he's going to be there at 10. I agree, Ryan. I still think there's a strong possibility the Raiders could take a corner, but I'm starting to see this pick on a lot of mock drafts, and it seems to be the trending pick for where they think the Raiders are going to go. Which I thought a week or two ago they were starting to steer away from linebacker. It looks like they may be steering back in that general direction, and that may be the reason we don't see Navarro Bowman, or that may even be the reason we see Navarro Bowman signed, is they're going to draft this guy and bring Bowman back after the draft and bring him back in. So it's hard to tell. It's hard to tell. So there you have it. There's your number 1 pick. There's your new Oakland Raider, Roquan Smith.
So at 11 is Miami, and the Dolphins, I think, are a team that's going to, much like, a team needs to replace somebody else, and I'm having that a little bit later with a couple of other teams, but because of that, I think the Dolphins end up going with Vita Vea, the defensive tackle out of the University of Washington, to help replace losing Ndamukong Suh. I think he helps the middle of that defense immediately. For a guy his size, he's a really good athlete, so he'll also be able to rush the passer. But I think he would be a great replacement for Suh in the middle of that defense.
There you go. And he was another guy who was on a lot of people's boards that the Raiders wanted at a defensive interior line, but we have him at 11. The Raiders pass on Vita Vea.
So at 12 is the Buffalo Bills, and this is one where you see pretty much everybody is saying that they think the Bills are going to trade up and maybe take over that 4 pick from the Browns that we had talked about. They'll have to give up a whole lot for that. I'm not necessarily sold that they would go quarterback here. They still, even though he looked a little iffy, they still have Nathan Peterman. They did just go and get A.J. McCarron, and I think that there's potential there for McCarron to be their guy. He was a guy who was not quite as kind of fanfared as Garoppolo was out of New England, but he was a guy that had really been impressive in the times he did play, and I think they will want to see what they have with him first. Before trading the farm to go up to try and get a quarterback. So at 12, I think that Buffalo goes offensive line, and a name that I've been hearing that's been rising up a lot of draft boards is who I think they would take here. It's Colton Miller, the offensive tackle out of UCLA. Mike McGlinchey out of Notre Dame had been a guy that had been kind of the universal number 1 offensive tackle. But I'm hearing more and more that teams really are liking Colton Miller. Played out obviously out at UCLA, Pac-12 passing offenses, and they really need offensive line help. So I think that he makes sense for them here at 12.
At 12, all right, there you have it, the number 12 pick.
At 13 is Washington Redskins. This is a guy who, again, because all the quarterbacks kind of got pushed down the board, but is as talented as anybody else in this draft. And so I think that he's going a little lower than he normally would have. But at this pick with Washington, I think that they take a versatile athlete on defense, and they go with Minkah Fitzpatrick out of the University of Alabama. Fitzpatrick, I read a quote from Nick Saban that said Fitzpatrick is as good of a secondary player as he's ever coached. And that's pretty big praise.
It is pretty big praise
coming out of Alabama.
Fitzpatrick's another guy I've seen on a lot of hits on the Raiders as a possibility too. So he's another one up there if they end up going defensive back. Could be towards the top of their board.
And he's
too.
a guy who can play corner, he can play safety, but I think he's probably projects more to being a safety, free safety type player. And that's part of why I don't think he makes sense for the Raiders.
You love Alabama, Popeye. Embrace the love.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest Nick Saban fan.
No, fuck
either,
Nick Saban
so
either.
I get it, but he puts out
how to work out it's the Dolphins.
He puts out
their
some
Nicky
dudes.
boy.
He puts out some dudes.
You better stay in college football. All right, moving on.
At 14, we go with the Green Bay Packers at 14, and they're a team that has a few different ways that they could go here. You know, they could use a wide receiver. They really have some holes some other places, but I think that their biggest hole is at corner. They really just teams were kind of able to do whatever they wanted to at times on the outside against the Packers. So I think here, that's why I think the Packers take Denzel Ward out of Ohio State. He's probably the best man cover corner in the draft.
Yeah.
He doesn't have elite size.
He was one of the high on my draft board.
But he's tough as nails. Played in a conference where, he got tested a lot. He's played in cold weather, being in Ohio. And so I think that he makes sense here for the Packers.
All right, there you have it. Denzel Ward goes at number 14 to the Packers.
At 15 is where we have the Arizona Cardinals, and this is one that is a guy that could go a lot of different places.
Yeah, this is one of those guys where you don't know what the hell they
really don't.
They're trying to say he's a wide receiver. Somebody wants to say he's a running back, and he's just like I'm a quarterback.
I know. So at 15, I think that the Cardinals go with Lamar Jackson out of Louisville, and part of that is because the offensive coordinator there at Arizona is one of those guys that is willing to mold his offense to his players and not mold his players to his offense. So I think that he's a guy that could be creative with how he does things, already having an elite running back there. I think that it's too good to pass up trying to get a quarterback of the future who could be a real game changer for them. Be a little bit in the mold of a Russell Wilson as far as mobility goes. So I think that they could end up really going quarterback.
No, they definitely need somebody. Palmer's out. He's at the end of the road. You got Fitzpatrick's coming back one more time. So, but I don't see how he's got too many more years left. So they're at a changing of the guard time in Arizona. Bruce Arians is out. Carson Palmer's out. Fitzgerald's at the end of his career, and maybe this is their new. Maybe this is it. Maybe this is where they go now.
Maybe.
So, but Lamar Jackson's off the board now at 15th pick.
At 16, Baltimore has the pick, and they're another team that, for being at 16, you wouldn't think they had as many holes as they do, but they kind of have several ways that they could go here. But I have them going the defensive side of the ball with Leighton Vander Esch out of Boise State. Another guy in the same way that Tremaine Edmonds has a lot of upside. There are a lot of scouts who talk about this guy, having the potential to be the next Luke Kuechly. They need some help in the middle of that defense. They play in a tough division where they need guys that can run and hit. And Vander Esch, fits the bill as far as that goes. But I think he's got a lot of upside.
All right. Well, there you have it. Your 16th pick.
At 17 are the Chargers.
The sparklers, the chokers.
I think that they could go a few different ways as well. But at this pick, I think that they go to bolster that defensive line and the interior, and I think they go with Daron Payne, the defensive tackle out of Alabama. He's a big body in the middle that can play the run. He can play
Alabama
the pass.
They make pro players,
guys, especially on defense. So I think that makes sense for them. They have their rush ends on the outside, but you get a guy in the middle so they can be freed up to really do what they do, and you can't really double team them on the outside if you have to worry about a guy up the middle as well. So.
Yep. That's true. It's true. It's true, Popeye. Like it or not, they do make pro players. They're a factory down there. So number 18.
And at
the pick
18 is the Seattle Sea Chickens or Seahawks or
the Rain City Bitch Pigeons.
and here I think that they go with your boy Josh Jackson, the cornerback out of Iowa.
Yeah, for every reason that I've been telling you for 2 weeks. That's why they take Josh Jackson.
And
he's a baller.
He could go sooner, absolutely. I think this pick makes sense, much like Vita Vea going to the Dolphins to replace Ndamukong Suh makes sense. Them losing Richard Sherman, Josh Jackson then steps in. Jackson is built to run a scheme as more of a zone corner than a man corner. That's what they ran at Iowa. He's very good at being an off-the-ball corner because he's very good at jumping routes, reading route combinations, picking off passes. He's a good tackler. So he really kind of is the same mold. He is Richard Sherman.
Yeah.
He's a sure tackler. He's good in zone coverage. I think
they definitely need something. The Legion of Boom is dead now. It's dead and gone. And they need to fill something. And Josh Jackson could be the man. I've been singing his praises for a couple weeks. You've all heard it, and we've got him falling all the way to the bitch pigeons. That was officially voted by Raider Nation. That wasn't just me.
That's official.
That was official. We had the Sea Chickens, the She-Hawks. We had every option out there. But it was unanimous that they would forever, in the annals of Raider Reaction, be known as the Rain City Bitch Pigeons.
That sounds like it could be. It sounds like a roller derby team. The Bay City Rollers or the Rain City
Rollers playing the Rain City Bitch Pigeons. They got feathers.
Right. I see them going around the track, trucking one another,
Oh, shit.
The Soggy Bottom Boys,
The Rain City Bitch Pigeons. That's just good stuff.
Yeah.
The pick is in.
The pick is in. At number 19 is the Cowgirls. Your friend of the show,
Teabag,
T-Well. These are his boys that are up.
Yeah, and they rid of Des Bryant. They better do something.
This is the trend here of replacing what we've lost. And I think when you have a quarterback that you want to be successful, you got to give him some tools other than one good leg left, Jason Witten. And you saw how fragile that running game became when there wasn't really a threat of throwing the ball down the field. So it could be a couple different ways that they could go, but I think they go wide receiver here, and I see them going after Cortland Sutton out of SMU. Big kid, 6'3", 215, 220 range. Has the frame to be a number one wide receiver. Mm-hmm. They also could go a Calvin Ridley or a DJ Moore. Calvin Ridley out of Alabama or DJ Moore out of Maryland. I think Ridley and Moore are talented guys, speed guys, but are more built to be number two receivers. I don't think either one of them are number one type guys because they're both 5'11", 6 foot range, not necessarily the frame. And so I think Cortland Sutton is a guy who makes a lot of sense here.
There you are. There's your number 19 pick.
Number 20 is the Detroit Lions. And the Lions have a few different ways they can go, but they're one of those teams that really need to be better about getting after the passer, especially in that division that now has Kirk Cousins. You got Aaron Rodgers. You got the Bears with their boy that they just drafted. So that's a division that you really got to get after the quarterback to be successful. And so here I think that the Lions go with Marcus Davenport at defensive end. Big kid, 6'6".
Yeah, he had a lot of buzz coming in, man. I heard a lot of talk about Marcus Davenport.
He could go much higher because of that frame, and because, like we talked about, you gotta have a quarterback and you gotta get after the quarterback and you gotta protect the quarterback. So he's a guy who could go much sooner. He didn't play at an elite school, so he didn't necessarily see the competition. which is why he's a guy you got to kind of project a little bit. So.
Yep.
I think that pick makes sense for them there.
Yeah, but I have seen a lot of people are high on Marcus Davenport. I've seen a lot higher on some people's boards. So we'll see. Maybe we're right.
Maybe we're right.
Never know. The pick is in
at 21
for the Bungles,
Cincinnati Bungles. Again, they're a team that is overdue for some offensive line help.
What does Marvin Lewis has to do to get fired?
He must have nude pictures of the owner.
That dude's got some nudies of somebody. He's got something on somebody.
I mean, if Matt Millen can keep his job as long as he did, I guess.
Quarterbacks in the NFL, or I mean, head coaches in the NFL get fired like right and left.
Right.
And this guy is on one of the historically worst franchises in the league and can't get it done, goes to the playoffs, constantly loses, and he's still there. So we'll see who he picks this year.
He's like the weird uncle at the party. Everybody wants to leave.
Yeah.
Nobody really wants to be the one to ask him to leave.
Yeah. But he brings the beer. So we gotta keep him. Yeah, all right, Marvin, you're gonna coach again this year.
He doesn't wear any pants.
Just keep bringing the keg.
So the Bungles, again, I think this makes too much sense for them. But I think at 21 they go with James Daniels. Out of Iowa.
The University of Iowa guy.
And was a really great center at Iowa, but he's also versatile enough to play guard. So I think that he makes sense for them to shore up the interior of that offensive line to try and keep the guys clean. There's some maybe one or two other guys that could maybe go. Mike McGlinchey could be a possibility here. Frank Ragnow is another guy who's out of Arkansas, who I've been hearing more and more that teams really like a lot because he's also a real versatile interior lineman. So I think that James Daniels is the pick here for Cincinnati.
All righty. There you go. There's your new bungle. Boy, what a great day for him.
At 22 is Buffalo. And again, this is... my guess is that if Buffalo trades up, was it 12? They trade up from 12. That trade up to go to 4 for the Browns is going to include also giving up this pick here.
Yeah.
But as it stands, since we're not, saying that we're not counting trades here.
It's hard to count trades because I got a feeling there's going to be some.
I think there's going to be a lot
in the top 10 this season.
Because I just think it doesn't cost as much money wise to move up as it used to.
No.
You got several teams that have more than one pick in the first round, so they can package those to be able to move up. But if they do stay here, I think a guy that makes sense for them is another guy at Alabama, Rashaan Evans, the inside linebacker. They really need a guy in the middle of that defense. He's another guy, sideline to sideline guy, sure tackler, good leader. I think he makes sense for them.
There you go. Bama, like we said earlier, Bama produces good pros and a lot on the defensive side of the ball.
At 23, New England Patriots, and there again is a talk about, the Patriots take their 2 picks to trade up and go try and get the successor to pretty boy Tom Brady. But if they stay here, I think they really need to replace Nate Solder that they lost on the offensive line. So I think here they would go with Mike McGlinchey, the offensive tackle out of Notre Dame, to try and shore up that offensive line and keep that pretty boy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've started to hear rumors about the falling apart there in the interior of the core of New England. So it's hard to tell. Yeah. I mean, he's not going to play forever. Right. I mean, he's 40. So, man, they've got to start thinking about quarterback. Garoppolo was you thought was the guy, but obviously he's out now. So it's got to be somebody.
And if they don't, I mean, if they could package those 2 picks and move way up. But how far up do they? I mean, are they going to trade all the way to 4? Baker Mayfield does not strike me as a guy that makes sense for them.
That's Bill Belichick's
Belichick's not going to really deal with that very well. Maybe if Rosen fell to 4 somehow, they could try and do that. A guy they could take later in the first round, Mason Rudolph, quarterback out of Oklahoma State, is a little more on the mold of a Tom Brady as far as stature and being a pocket passer type. So maybe he makes sense for them there. But they need to replace the left tackle offensive line with Nate Solder leaving. So I think McGlinchey makes sense.
There's your number 23 pick. Number 24 pick is in.
24 is Carolina. And I kind of went back and forth with a couple of different names, but in the division that they're in, they really need to be able to cover guys. You know, you have elite quarterbacks in that division. You got, wide receivers that can do it all. So I think that the Panthers, much like the Packers, need to go corner here. And I think they take Jair Alexander out of Louisville. I think that he's a kid who's got a lot of upside. He does a little bit of everything, and they got to be able to cover guys a little bit better on the back end, on the outside. So I think that makes sense for them here.
All righty, there you go.
At 25 is the Tennessee Titans, and a guy that I'd mentioned a little bit earlier. I think that the Titans could go with a guy like Frank Ragnow out of Arkansas. I think that he has the ability to step in and play center for them, but also he has the flexibility to play guard as well. More and more that I've been hearing about him is a lot of teams really may even like him as above James Daniels because of his versatility. So he could be a guy that I think makes sense for the Titans because they want that power running game. They want to be able to keep Mariota healthy.
Yeah, they're trying to build that power running game.
It
looks like it with the guys they've brought in there. They've got big, beefy running backs. That looks like the scheme they're going for. So
I think he makes sense for them there at 25.
At 25, there you have it. Pick number 25.
26 is the Atlanta Falcons. And Falcons, to me, it maybe that makes more sense than any other team. I don't think there's any way they don't go defensive tackle here. I've been seeing, I know people talking about Calvin Ridley going there, but do they really need a guy who's going to come in and it's going to be their number 3 wide receiver? I mean, they have Sanu as a number 2.
Yeah,
he may eventually be the number 2 wide receiver ahead of Sanu, or if Sanu moves on. But once they lost guys from the interior, they don't have anybody at defensive tackle. I had seen where about Isaiah Wynn out of Georgia might come in to be offensive guard, but then they picked up a guard from the 49ers. So I really think they have to go defensive tackle here. And another guy with that they make comparisons to J.J. Watt as far as his testing, which is obviously a huge
That's a good comparison if you're making that comparison.
But Taven Bryan out of University of Florida is a kid who I think would fit well in Quinn's scheme. Versatile interior guy who's a really good athlete. His production didn't really warrant being a first-round pick from his time at Florida. But the talent is there, the drive is there. He's a workout warrior kind of kid. Put up big numbers at the combine, and I think he would be a nice tool in the toolbox for Dan Quinn and the Falcons.
Number 26, the 27th pick is in.
The 27 is the New Orleans Saints, and with the Saints again, this is a spot that they have been missing. It is a tight end. I think that they would go Hayden Hurst, the tight end out of South Carolina.
Yeah, they needed somebody since Jimmy Graham left.
Ever since Graham left, they've been wanting, other guys to be the guy. And that tight end was really, their red zone threat, and kind of their security blanket for Breeze. And I think that it makes a lot of sense for them to go tight end here. He's a really complete tight end. There's a couple of other guys that are good as well. Dallas Goedert is a more of a pass catching tight end, but is a guy that could go here. Mike Gesicki out of Penn State, another guy who I'm a big fan of, but I think that he'll probably fall to the second round. So I think that they go with Hayden Hurst out of South Carolina.
Hayden Hurst, there you go. He's your number 27th pick to the New Orleans Saints. Pick is in for number 28.
At 28 for the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think that they could go a few different ways. This is the guy that could also fall into the second round, but I think that he makes sense for them, and that's Justin Reed, the safety out of Stanford. Versatile player, smart guy.
They've needed a solid safety. They've needed a solid safety for a while too.
I think that they need. I mean, I think that they really need a guy in the back end that has the versatility to do a little bit of everything. I think they could also try and replace outside linebacker. So that could be an option too. The kid out of Oklahoma, whose name I can't say, Agbania Okoronkwo. Actually,
man, that's pretty damn good. That's a better stab than I would have taken at that. That's not bad.
He's a guy that could make sense for them as well. He's not very tall though. He's only like 6'1", but he gets after the passer. So that could be an option as well. But I think that Justin Reed makes sense for them back at safety.
There you are. There's your number 28 pick. Number 29 pick is in.
29 is Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that they need to work on the outside after losing Allen Robinson and free agency. And this is where I think that Calvin Ridley out of Alabama,
another Bama player,
make a lot of sense for them. Also could see, like I had mentioned before, DJ Moore, an electric kid with the ball in his hands. Ridley is much more of a technician with his route running, his hands.
Yeah, the Jags got to do something. They were knocking on the door. They were knocking on the door, and I still think their biggest problem is the guy they got under center. But
it is. So maybe they take a Mason Rudolph here. If he's still available as well. That's the thing that makes me think they're not going to go quarterback, because they just paid him.
Yeah.
But they're obviously nails on defense. They have the running back. I mean, they could go offensive line here somewhere. They could go tight end with either the guys I talked about, Goddard or Gesicki. But I think it just makes sense. They need some more guys on the outside.
They lost talent. They did lose talent at wide receiver. That is for sure.
Number 30 is the Minnesota Vikings, and a guy that has been mock drafted to several different teams. Isaiah Wynn at the University of Georgia. And he's a guy that had played tackle at Georgia, but he'll move down to guard at the NFL level. And Minnesota, new quarterback. They want to keep clean. They're going to be getting Dalvin Cook back.
That's another one I don't get.
That's a whole lot of money. For
guaranteed money for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
Seriously.
But they're going to get Dalvin Cook back, who was another one of those guys who probably was going to give Rookie of the Year a run for its money.
He was.
Until he got hurt. He was lighting it up early.
Yeah, Latavius Murray got lucky. Everybody in front of him got injured, or he was never going to play last year.
Their defense is nails. So I think you strengthen that offensive line with a versatile guy who's a road grader at offensive guard. I think he makes sense for them there.
All righty. There you have it.
At 31 is the New England Patriots with their second pick of the first round. And here I think that the Patriots go corner. After losing one in free agency, Malcolm Butler walks. I think that they try and get an athlete on the back end. Belichick loves guys that he can play kind of all over and are interchangeable. I think they go with Mike Hughes, cornerback out of UCF. Can really run. Ran up 4.34, I believe, at the combine. Is a good returner as well.
Yeah.
So he can kick and punt return. He's got some versatility for special teams. And they need a corner. So I think that he makes sense for them there at 31.
All righty, there you have it. And here's our last pick of the first round, number 32, going to Philadelphia Eagles, your defending champions.
32 for the Philadelphia Eagles, newly left the kids' table?
Yes, they left the kiddie table. They left the kiddie table, and then it caused, shh, don't say his fucking name. We almost made it through the show. But, with the dark forces and what have you, and all the shit that got started, and, we've tried to take care of that already with the voodoo doll, and we've already tried to take care of that. We've got one right through the heart. We're not fucking around out of the gate. And we'll have to take a poll where the next, he gets impaled next. I'm thinking like a knee, maybe a shoulder. I don't know, but we'll let you decide.
Dealer's choice. So, for the last pick of the first round of the 2018 Raider Reaction NFL Mock Draft,
yes,
I think that the Philadelphia Eagles go.
There had to be. There's always one. There's always one. God damn you, Lions. There's always one.
I think that the Eagles go corner here. I think they go Isaiah Oliver, cornerback out of University of Colorado. Big kid. I believe he's 6'1". Really good athlete. Philadelphia in their scheme values bigger corners. And so I think that that's a spot where they're set in that front seven. They got the quarterback. They got running backs. I don't think they go wide receiver here. They have the tight end. They're set at offensive line. They're in really good shape across the roster, but I think, you can't have enough corners. And it's a division where I think it makes sense for them to get another tool back there in the back end, and I think Isaiah Oliver makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, obviously they don't have a lot of holes. They just won the damn Super Bowl, so I mean they're a pretty solid team. So anywhere they go is going to strengthen them up. So there's our first round, 1 through 32. Roquan Smith at number 10 was our pick for the Raiders. Now, for the remaining picks for the Raiders, we haven't put names, we've went positions. Because obviously, you start getting down to round the pick 228, the chance I pick the right goddamn players, like, fucking, I might as well go play the lotto. Because the chance of that happening is slim to none. So we'll go positions for the Raiders. So in round 2, the Raiders are picking 41. I am going corner for the Raiders in the second round. As you know, I thought the Raiders would go. I was very strong on them going corner in the first round. We backed off of that, went with Roquan Smith and Josh Jackson, Denzel Ward have all passed, but I think they will grab early in the second round. I think they will grab a corner. There's
a kid out of Texas, Holton Hill. Who's got a lot of potential, big corner, 6'3", but talented guy. Obviously played in a big conference, but a lot of potential. Being able to find a corner of that size really makes a big difference, especially when you look at a division where you're going to be going against a Demaryius Thomas. You got some bigger receivers that you're going to be going against throughout the year. The Mike Williamses and the Keenan Allens and whatnot of the world, having a big corner to be able to match up with those guys, he could be a nice option there.
Well, I think corner's still our big need. If we don't go at it first, I think we go in second. That's what I've been saying all along. I haven't backed off from what I've said all along. I still think the first 3 picks for the Raiders are linebacker, corner, and defensive line. It was all about what order it was going to be. So, staying like what I'd said, if we went linebacker in the first, we went corner in the second, that leaves defensive line in the third. I think we're going to go interior defensive line in the third and address that weakness as well. This is a deep defensive draft, and I think we can get some solid talent at both those positions in the second, third round.
And I think that another option that you guys could go if he falls, that would be a great option, is Maurice Hurst, defensive tackle out of Michigan. So
there's been a lot of talk about him. I've heard a lot of talk about him at our first overall pick, which I think is a little steep, maybe.
Yeah, it's too steep, especially because he left the draft because they had concerns over a heart issue. Though supposedly he got cleared, he did this pro day at Michigan and everything was fine.
Yeah.
But that's a big roll of the dice for a guy as a top 10 pick.
Yeah. Hey, we like to draft guys with bad hearts like
Right.
DJ Hayden.
Right.
Yeah, that one worked out real well.
But Hurst might be the most complete defensive tackle in the draft. He rushes the passer very well. He's got the size to hold up against the run. Came from a big time school playing in a big conference.
Yeah,
so
and if he's there at 2 when it comes around, maybe he's the guy we take it to, and then they end up addressing the corner at 3rd.
Yep.
But we will see. Now in round 4 at the 110th overall pick, I see us addressing our future running back position. Obviously, Beast Mode's not going to be around forever. We got Hood sitting on the practice squad. D-Wash and Richard, we've seen the ceiling on both of those guys. I mean, I don't know what the fuck Doug Martin is. Doug Martin is, I don't know. He's emergency. I don't know where he fits in.
Yeah.
But we need our new number 1 running back. And I think this is as well as a defensively deep draft. I think this is a running back deep draft as well. And I think we can get somebody in the 4th round who can be our guy to groom behind all these other guys for a year or so, and then be our number 1 in a year or two. And that's where I think we go at 4.
2 guys that I think would make sense, middle round guys that have a lot of upside. Royce Freeman, running back out of Oregon. Good size, an explosive runner. Has had some injury issues. He seems to get nicked up, from time to time, but is a really versatile running back, really tough runner. Oregon's offense wasn't the same when he wasn't in it. So he's a guy that'll be probably a day 2, mid-round kind of guy. Another guy, Rashawn Penny, out of San Diego State, makes a lot of sense. Kind of a bigger back, but a really productive runner. Throughout college.
Running backs, you can find a stud running back at some of these smaller colleges just because a guy didn't have the name and it's a big school name. Running backs are different. You can find these guys, man. That quick, it can break tackles. And that's what we need. We need somebody in the future. Marshawn Lynch is not it, and none of the other guys that we have on roster are a future number 1 running back. We don't have that right now. Yeah. Elijah Hood, we were hoping, but he's on the practice squad. So there's a reason he's on the practice squad. Let's be realistic. Now, I see, and we address the first defense with the first 3 picks. I think we're going to go offense on the next 5 picks, as I have our round 5 picks at 159, 173. We address offensive line and wide receiver, and then our first 2 picks in round 6 at 185 and 212, I have us going offensive line again, as well as wide receiver. So in 5 and 6, we both grab an offensive lineman and a wide receiver to look for a little offensive depth, some youth, some speed, some possibilities in the return game that we need. We still need the number 3. We brought in Jordy Nelson. Amari Cooper's the number 1. We thought maybe Cordarrelle Patterson, but now he's a Patriot. Seth Roberts did not have the year that we were hoping he would have last season, so he's not really stepping up to be the number 3. Johnny Holton does not. Johnny Holton's fast, and once in a while he's good for that bomb, but that's about it. Nobody has stepped up to be the number 3, so I've got a feeling in round 5 and 6, we're going to try to find that late round wide receiver. That speedster, that young kid with the great hands that, he's that breakout guy.
And that's a lot of times where you can find a guy who can be the number 3 guy, but he's also a great returner, so he can kind of, 2 birds with 1 stone. I think that, Darius Geis that you mentioned is a guy, there's another guy, he could end up being a first-round pick. If he falls to the 2nd round, maybe the Raiders like him enough that they take him at their pick, or maybe they, trade up that once he falls and they love him so much that that they take him. I could see like Geis could go to the Lions. I mean, obviously Amir Abdullah hasn't gotten the job done.
No, he hasn't.
They haven't.
Yeah, I drafted that guy on my fantasy team as a rookie. He ain't done shit.
Theo Riddick is nothing more than a check down running back on 3rd down. So maybe the Lions are a team that could absolutely take a Darius Geis. He's a stud. But it just goes back to, this is a deep draft. Ronald Jones out of USC, is a stud as well and a heck of a talent. So, you know, there are options if they wanted to go early to try and get their guy. But Jones and Geis, you are not going to fall below your second round pick.
No.
You might have a shot with some other guys like a Nick Chubb or Sony Michel out of Georgia, or the two guys I talked about before with Royce Freeman and Rashawn Penny. But there's just, it is, like you said, it's a deep running back draft. There's a lot of options out there for guys.
Yeah, I think they can grab some talent later in the draft. And then now I see us going back to defense with the last 2 rounds in the 6th at 216 and 217. Have us going defensive line and grabbing another corner to grab a little more depth at corner, because obviously we know we fucking need depth at corner. Now we went out, we got some Sean Melvin. You know, we did get some guys to add depth through free agency, but we don't have that. Melvin might be another solid number 1 to go on the other side of Connolly, but he's not the guy that we want. We're still looking for that guy. And then at our last pick at 228 in the 7th round, I have us going back and trying to grab another wide receiver. So we have us going number 1, round 1, Roquan Smith. Round 2, cornerback. Round 3, defensive line. Round 4, running back. Round 5, offensive line, wide receiver. Round 6, offensive line, wide receiver, defensive line, and corner. And then closing it out, the Raiders' last pick, the 11th pick in 2018 in round 7, will be a wide receiver. So that's how we got it shaken out. Are we right? Guess we'll know.
Probably.
Soon enough. And we'll break it down. I'm going to take the first round, and we're gonna compare it to this, and we'll see how we did. We'll see how we did with the rest of these schmucks.
I feel like we're going to get to 4, and I just have to light it on fire.
Yeah, probably.
There's going to be like 5 trades that have happened.
It's probably going to be.
You know, who knows? It's one of those deals. It's going to be this. Honestly, I'll say it again. I think this draft is going to be as crazy as any. I wouldn't be surprised to see a record number of trades, because I think there are a number of guys, even that could fall to the bottom of the first round, that because there were so many quarterbacks taken early, they're guys that could end up being top of the second round that really are first round talents.
It's hard to tell.
So
you cannot predict the draft.
Yeah.
Ask Brady Quinn.
Ask Brady Quinn.
That poor fucker said they had to take him to his own room because he's out there sitting there like, damn, Brady, we're sorry we invited your ass. Come on, man. Is they to take it? Yeah. So ask some of those guys. You cannot predict what's going to happen in the draft. It can get crazy. There can be some crazy trades, and yeah. Hey, that's what you always go back and say. I told you so. We did okay last year. We didn't do an official mock draft. I had Prime with me last season, and we did our draft special, and we kind of picked like who the first running back would be, the first overall. We stayed real safe, and we did okay. So we're hanging it out there this year. We're either gonna look okay or look like complete asses. But either way, it was fun.
Right, we're used to that anyway. So
yeah, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I don't care what you think of me. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't survive this long.
I don't think that really jives with most Raider fans. I feel like hardcore Raider fans, they're not really concerned with what you think.
No, we don't give a fuck at all.
They're going to do what they do.
Well, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we appreciate every single one of you that stopped in and joined us on our first official mock draft, Raider Reaction live mock draft. Hopefully, if we're still here next year, we're going to do it again. We will do it again, and hopefully we'll do this every year as long as I can keep this Raider Reaction boat afloat. But it seems to be doing all right. We just eclipsed another like and follow mark. I don't even remember what the hell we're at now. But we're moving on up as we eclipsed. Where we at? We eclipsed 23,000 followers this week. 23,000 followers, and we're right at the brink of 19,000 likes. So Raider Reaction is still growing, even through the damn off season. We had a huge week again. That added a bunch of followers and likes to the page. So
keep your eyes out during the draft for my boy Scott Frost. Huskers on their way back, buddy. Get ready.
Yeah.
Frost warning.
Frost warning.
See what I did there?
A frost morning. But go if you haven't followed us on the Twitter. We're on the Twitter at Raider Reaction. We're also at Hardcore Challenge live studio webcast on YouTube. Let's go like up our YouTube page. We've got a contest coming in May exclusively for our subscribers to our YouTube channel. So go subscribe to YouTube channel. Hardcore Challenge live studio webcast. It's got all our shit. All of our hosts, all their pages are, all the shows are archived on there in different playlists, so you can go on there and check that out. Follow us on the Twitter. Like us, follow us, share us here. But we will be back Monday. If you guys didn't check out the video earlier, Captain Jack is live on location for Raider Reaction at the fan convention in Phoenix, Arizona right now as we speak. And pinned to the top of the page is he walked around the fan convention. We've got an interview with Ken Stabler's daughter on there, Gorilla Rilla, 4Dub. There's a cameo from Tom Flores. Go check that video out, Raider Nation. If you haven't watched it, it was a couple hours ago. So it's just live footage. So unfortunately, those of us who didn't get to go to the damn fan convention, I wanted to go, but my wife wouldn't let me. But we have Captain Jack there holding it down, and he had some awesome footage, man. Go check that out. Some amazing interviews he grabbed for Raider Reaction on location for us. But JP, I appreciate it, man. I told you. That's why this guy was here. Do you see how much college football knowledge this man has in his head? My knowledge is mostly pro, and until these guys are drafted by a team and got to get to the combine, I don't keep that much of an eye on them. That's why we've got JP in the fold to have the...
I don't know what I'm doing on Wednesday, but I can tell you about a bunch of college football players.
There you go. Absolutely. So we appreciate you joining us, each and every one of you. And like the page, follow us on Twitter. Go subscribe to us on YouTube. I will see you back on Monday. We've got a hype week for you planned next week. It's draft. We're working on having Raider Reaction live behind the scenes at the first round of the draft. We've got all kinds of stuff planned for you this week. Big L will be in the studio Monday for Ghost of the Post. Raider Nation Report on Tuesday. Wednesday, Raider Nation Invasion. And then we got the NFL draft. So it's going to be a hype week on Raider Reaction, so make sure you tune in. JP, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, everybody.
We are out, Raider Nation.
Go Big Red.
Go enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll see you Monday. Peace, love. Raider Nation!